Mega Man for the Uninitiated is a platformer series with run-and-gun elements. This series branched out into many sequel series such as Mega Man X, Mega Man Legends, and Mega Man Battle Network. The series as a whole is already niche as it is, but there's one Mega Man series that's definitely overlooked by a lot of people, and that's the Mega Man Zero series. They're the direct sequel to the X series, as they take place 100 years after the events of the X games, and they take place in a war-torn world. The series does start out kinda rough as the first game isn't that great, but it plays really well with great music and great mechanics. They had a rough first attempt. And Zero 2 is much more refined than the first one, and it's a solid game. But the game I want to talk about today, however, is the third game of the Zero series, as I truly believe it is the culmination and true evolution of the Mega Man franchise that not enough people give credit for beyond Mega Man fans. When you press new game, you're thrust into the intro stage. This is nothing new for Mega Man, but it gets the player familiar with Zero's moveset. Like X before him, he can dash, now with the ability to turn around in the dash animation, wall jump, and do everything he could in the X games, with some improvements from the X games such as being able to charge the saber and walk while slashing. The movement in general for the Zero and later ZX games are so buttery smooth, and it's not too weighty like X5 to 7, but it's more in line with the SNES trilogy and X8, which makes the act of moving around super satisfying. When we arrive at the boss door, we're greeted by the boss. Yes, Dr. Eggman, you are correct. That is Omega. He's pretty easy to dodge. Just dodge the slow, predictable patterns and charge saber, and he'll be gone before you know it. Of course, since Zero 3 is a sequel to the first two Zero games, it also makes improvements on its own, like a good sequel should. So the first two Zero games had a weapon star system, to where you couldn't use your basic moveset like your triple slash or fully charged buster until you grinded your life away to get those stars. It's all unlocked right from the moment you press start in Zero 3. They don't waste your time, and thank you, Inti Creates, for actually cooking. Zero 1 was so unnecessary with grinding, and while Zero 2 was better, it was a little annoying to get your triple slash, even though he should have it from the get-go, like in the X games. The Cyber Elves from the previous two games, which in this game are found in secret discs scattered throughout the stages, are the Zero series equivalent to heart tanks and sub-tanks from Mega Man X. They do require energy crystals from defeated enemies, but the cost isn't too high for the ones you want anyway, unlike the first Zero game. But once you do, you'll have benefits such as the spinning slash from the X games, extra health and sub-tanks like I mentioned before, and so much more. Improvement Zero 3 makes is if you convert them to satellite elves, which are just equipables, where there's 2 equip slots that can be freely swapped anytime, will not decrease your rank. This is a really good compromise for those who want extra perks without feeling like they're left out of the Cyber Elf system. I straight up love this system and systems like these. It reminds me of Down Your Door's badge system, where it gives the player the freedom to choose what effects best suit them. I personally go with the double health bar, and the spin slash from the X games is super fun to slash everybody with a spinning slash of death. After beating the intro stage, Zero returns to the Resistance base, and Servo gives him 2 new weapons. The returning Shield Boomerang, which, while somewhat useful for defensive play, I don't use it that much or at all, but the other weapon is genuinely amazing, and a big reason to keep coming back to this game, the Recoil Rod. Up until this point, the Zero series as a whole has dual weapon wielding, and it's fantastic. Just make sure to switch to Type B in the options so you can use both weapons on separate buttons, so you can use it to the fullest extent. This lets you play how you want with your Buster, Saber, and the 2 weapons we just got. Back to the Recoil Rod. This weapon has everything. Platform use cases, yep. Combat utility, yeah. And it's just satisfying to use. The Recoil Rod is a relatively slow melee weapon that can go in all 8 directions, but the real magic comes in its charge. The name suggests anything that gets hit or is affected by it recoils back. So that means pushing enemies back, or better yet, using enemies that bounce off them to get height, which is used to great effect to get the physical sub-tanks that would locate in the stages. You can even do this off the ground too, which is super fun to mess around with. So I've established the roster of weapons and the basic controls. Let's pick from our 8 boss. Wait, there's only 4 bosses here. Yeah, that's right. Zero 3, like say Mega Man 8, splits its boss roster in half, which sounds like it'd be a negative, but it allows the designers to better scale the difficulties, as that was an issue with a lot of Mega Man games, as I usually gravitate towards the easiest stage first and just play in weakness order. Death Tan's Mantisk's stage, yes, these boss names are ridiculous, is a relatively simple stage to get you acquainted with the basic movement, and if you beat the fire boss, which I'll talk about later. First, you can burn down the trees for secrets too, which is pretty neat. This boss can be a bit much for newbies, but with the sub-tank you got, it should be no issue. Sub-tanks in the Zero series only use what's needed, which is a very nice improvement from the X series. With that stage done, I want to discuss the ranking system, as it's somewhat controversial to people who play the Zero games. So here's the deal. It's broken down into if the mission was completed, which is most of the time just beat the stage, so you'll get all the points there, no problem. Time taken, damage taken, enemies beaten, deaths, and non-satellite elves used, which in the prior 2 games, any Cyber Elves penalized you for your rank. I personally really enjoyed in 03 due to the elf system, as I mentioned before, and the fact that I usually speed through these kinds of games anyway. The rank system benefits my style of play, but like 02, your rank is essential for getting EX skills, which are extra moves for Zero, such as the upward and downward saber attacks found in the X games, which doesn't sit right with some people, and I'm iffy on it myself. But the game is designed to be replayed anyway with the intent of shooting for a high score, so it's a nice incentive to play better to get more moves for this game's incredible combat system. This game's combat system is surprisingly complex for this kind of game, where the only thing was, in the X and classic games, do damage. But certain strings of attacks in 03 have priority over the boss's invincibility frames, so if you know how to change them together, you can really destroy them quickly. It really engages you in how you can maximize the usage of your different tools, kind of like it's a 2D Devil May Cry game. I am not good at this at all myself, but it's super fun to shred through health bars when you know what you're doing. Onto the fire stage, and the stage is super fun. Reminds me a lot of Magma's Dragoon stage in X4 with the perilous dash jumps you have to make. The stage is a really cool recoil rod secret that's used to push a block earlier in the stage to get a secret disc later. Here's another example of why I love the recoil rod so much. While we're in this stage, I want to highlight the music since it's so good. It goes for the entire game in general, either the original GBA OST or the official remastered OST. I'll just play the remastered OST for better clarity, but just know it sounds amazing for GBA standards as well. Take a listen. Also want to mention that the fire stage loves break the targets, which is a really fun recoil rod exercise. With that stage done, we have the water. Oh no. This stage is one of the two that I don't like. The GBA screen crunch ruins this stage, and it doesn't help the mission objective is to find buttons in the stages that are hidden in places that look like pits. The stage does make great use of the recoil rod's pogo though, and it has great music, but I died a few times due to the annoying mini-boss in the stage and the aforementioned screen crunch. Let's hope the next stage is better. Thankfully it is, it once again is an objective, but this time it's to destroy all the security cameras. Thankfully they're on the way this time and not hidden in pits like the last stage. So it's a neat movement challenge to get them all rather than being frustrating. This stage once again takes advantage of the recoil rod by having hammers you can use the charge shot on to get some goodies. This stage also has a neat gimmick of trying not to get stuck on the scrap as it'll make you sink in, so it's a really fun dynamic of keeping your speed up while carefully avoiding it. The boss here, if you have the ice chip like you should have when you do this order, just defeats him in no time. And if you have the A rank or higher, then you'll get the down stab, a useful tool in your arsenal. Bosses in this game, in addition to the EX skill, give a chip regardless of the rank to augment Zero's abilities, such as elemental chip weaknesses, which I actually prefer to the 8 special weapon formula of the X and classic games, since while it does, yes, simplify the weakness chain to a simple fire, ice, and elect, it also gives you access to your normal moveset as it just augments the weapon's element, which makes the amazing combat useful even when doing weakness runs instead of relying on often gimmicky special weapons. The bosses that don't give an elemental chip, more interestingly, give chips such as the double jump, which carries your dash momentum in the Zero series, which was not the case in X, faster charging, and the ever useful ability to negate knockback. It just makes the game so much fun to mess around with when you get all of them. Now that we've beaten the first 4 bosses, we have the mid stage, which takes place on a missile, by the way. Yeah, this game's awesome. Solid stage with some fun platforming. The boss goes down quick with the charge saber since it's 2 targets that share a single health bar. Next stage. Can't wait to fight the next 4 bosses. Oh wait, there's only 3 more? There's always 8 in a Mega Man game. Oh! These are just reused bosses from the first Zero game, being Blizzak Stagroth, Anubis Necromantis, and Hanu Machine, respectively. Thankfully, they have all new level designs with great music and they're all fun to play. Hanu Machine's EX skill is the upward stab, so make sure to grab it as it'll be useful in later stages. Oh, and in the desert stage, you can do this. No complaints about these stages, honestly, since they add more levels to the game, and more 03 is always a great thing. Now that we're at the second middle stage, Copy X's Fort is a really fun precision movement level with spikes everywhere and moving platforms. It's super satisfying to jump around them and catch the platforms as they move towards you. It's a really fun test of your movement skills up until this point. Copy X himself is a really fun boss. Yes, it's a retread of his fight from 01, as he's basically just X for the X series, kind of like the X vs. Zero fight in X5, but actually challenging. Also, this official art of Copy X and Zero fighting on the 04 soundtrack CD calendar is amazing. I love the Zero series art in general, but I'm getting off topic. If you got this far, you can do it. Once you send Copy X to the trash, the other half of the boss rusher finally shows itself, and we'll start with Cubit Foxstar stage. It's a really fun stage. Be surprised at this point, with a cool gimmick of tilting seesaws that really test your precise movement skills on small platforms, and it ends with a really fun vertical climb up a spiked shaft, similar to Copy X's stage before. I say the stage does drag a bit with its multiple mini-bosses, but it's really fun. What's not fun, however, is the boss. I swear the patterns feel random, and I always get hit by the attack where the fox splits into giant fireballs, and I usually have to save sub-tank energy for it. Regardless, you'll get the double jump chip, and the rest of the game becomes infinitely more fun. Next up is the Sunken Library. Well, this is the other stage I don't like. The first half is solid, where there's rising electric water that forces you to take your time on these weird turtle platforms that you can flip over the buster. Or you can be like me and tank the damage with the iframes. The second half of the stage, though, while I appreciate it for being a change of pace, it's just boring, as it's literally just the Caught in 4K stage where you expose the villain's secret plans on the 4 discs they're on, and they're scattered randomly, by the way, and you just have to look at the main computer to find them. So I just look at my phone to take pictures of them every time I play the stage to make it take less time. This boss is really easy with the ice chip though. Next. The next stage takes place in a snowy tundra with giant snowboards. Yeah, this game's awesome once again, where you shred down the slope Sonic Adventure style. It's a nice reprieve from all the movement challenges the game has thrown at you so far. This stage can be a little boring if you just stay on the snowboard, but you can always puff it on foot to kill some enemies on the way. In fact, the game will actually incentivize you to do that for your rank, because if you just stay on the snowboard, you won't get the enemy points you need for your pay rank. Probably one of the weaker stages due to this, but it's still a really solid stage. The last of the 8 main stages is the obligatory elevator beat 'em up stage, which every game with a slight amount of combat needs, and this one's really fun. You get great usage of the recoil rod as pushing the enemies off is surprisingly effective. Oh, for the mini boss, use the Throwblade EX skill that the water stage boss gives you, combined with the ice chip, and you'll stun lock it. It's just a super fun stage that allows the combat to shine in the game with excellent combat. The boss is really annoying though, as he's giant on the tiny GBA screen and he summons minions that are very aggressive. Overall, a solid roster stages minus the 2 I didn't like. Even then, they were mediocre at worst. I think I over-exaggerated a little bit. I will concede, however, that a lot of the bosses are a bit easy with the amount of options you have, but I'd rather have that problem than the alternative when they're harder because of a lack of options. This game is plenty of fun to be had regardless. If you're worried about your rank dropping for new EX skills, don't worry. If you've maintained the A and got all of them up until this point, take it easy, as there's no more EX skills at this point. Onwards to the finale. The finale consists of 2 stages, both of which are a bit underwhelming, like X4's finale. They're not bad stages at all. In fact, they're really fun to play for the same reasons I've mentioned so far that 03 is fun to play in general, but they definitely don't have that oomph of being the final levels in terms of challenge. Regardless, the first stage houses a fight with the returning Phantom from 01, as beating him gives you the Ultima foot chip, which gives all the perks from the other foot chips, so grab it. Also, didn't mention them until now, but the blue portals you've seen throughout the stages are entrances to cyberspace, which makes the game easier, but 1, you can't use them for boss encounters, and 2, it deducts 5 mission score from your rank, except with this stage. So if you're going for a high rank, don't. If you're just trying to make the game easier, then yeah, go for it. We then refight the missile stage boss, and we're at the final stage. Predictably, the final stage houses the final bosses and the Mega Man tradition I wish would go away, the boss rush. But thankfully 03 is such an in-depth combat system and you have way more options than you did before. It flies by in no time, and it's actually a really fun test of how much you've learned throughout the game, and it's not that bad in this game. It's also broken up by platforming sections, so that's a neat little final challenge there. The final boss is split into 3 phases. Omega's first phase is almost identical to the intro stage boss, but he has an extra sword attack. Ooh, how threatening. His second phase is a giant neck, which is an amalgamation of X and Zero. Just use everything you've learned, and these phases are relatively easy. Now, the third and final phase is Omega Zero, the original Zero body. I will go into the story in a separate video with all the other Zero games, don't worry. And he has a massive letdown in terms of challenge. He, for some reason, takes a ton of damage from the dash stab EX skill though, which makes the fight go really quick. If you don't use elves or EX skills, if you're just not careful, which I do tend to play recklessly in this game, this fight would be harder. And that's the thing with the Zero series, the challenge is entirely on you. If you want to deck yourself out with all the fusion elves and all the best stuff, you can, despite your rank going down to like an F or an E maybe. but you can do it, or you can play it with minimal upgrade runs and have fun that way. I really like this approach to difficulty, as it's a soft difficulty slider, but I can understand why it's not for everybody. And with that, we've reached the end. How I think about this game is very obvious given the title and my general tone, but I don't have that many gripes with this game, and the ones I do have are minor at best. I truly believe it took everything great about the past Mega Man games, fixed what didn't work, and refined the franchise and the Zero series in general, and is the next logical step of the Mega Man franchise in my opinion. This is the peak of the Zero series, easily. Zero 4 is a great game in my opinion, but it falters on a lot of what made Zero 3 so nearly perfect to me. This game to me is the purest definition of fun. Great movement with a roster of weapons that never gets old with the amount of options you have. A chip system that makes the game super fun to experiment around in, especially with how many potential combos there are to mess with the weapons and the chip system. It's right up there with other great Mega Man games such as X1, X4, and even X2. This is easily my favorite Mega Man game, which X4 and X2 follow close behind. Despite it being on the GBA, it suffers from very little screen crunch, minus the one water stage, and some blind vertical jumps with the series always struggled with anyway, and it has an amazing soundtrack that you should go listen to. It's not a perfect game, but it's really close. If you're on the fence and you heard it's challenging given the Zero series reputation, give it a try on the casual mode in the Legacy Collection, or what I recommend is play without it and just use Cyber Elves, explore the stages, and find all the discs. Your rank does not matter on a first playthrough. Either way, it makes the experience a lot easier while giving access to the fun movement of the game and eventually makes you better to want to turn off the training wheels. They kept in mind the newbies, and that I appreciate. Let the option be there without it being forced on the experienced players. I personally don't play it that way, but maybe it'll convince at least one person to feel the same way I do about this game. If that's what it takes, then I did my job to convince you that this game's great. It's on all modern platforms, and I implore anyone to try the Zero series, even if it slightly piques your interest, especially this game. It may not be for everyone, but it is for me. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.